Hello again, and welcome back to BD Radio. We've been a little bit quiet on the podcast front, which surprisingly you might think like, oh, the gym owners, what have they got to do? But we've actually been really busy, which has been exciting this past month.
It has.
Um, most of you listening to this will be across the fact that we've started up nutrition coaching. We've also launched our first ebook. You can find both information about those on our website now. But yeah, we have been quite busy. We've also had a teething child, which means that our podcast recording slot of the middle of the day when she's asleep has been drastically diminished. But we are certainly hoping to be able to get back into our routine of one a week, starting from now. Today's episode, as I welcome my host, Danielle,
Thank you.
co-host, is about the differences between a healthy diet versus a fat loss diet. So the reason why we wanted to, break down this topic a little bit more is because it's been a real point of conversation with our nutrition clients is, explaining the difference between the two. So why don't we start with what we would classify as a healthy diet. Dan, what are the key points, the key focus points that we look to for someone who's trying to eat healthily?
Okay, so you're probably looking at more of your micronutrients, so like getting as much nutritional quality as possible.
A diet consisting predominantly of whole foods.
Yeah. And that's not to say that a fat loss diet does not include the same. Obviously, we want to be healthy with our fat loss diet.
Yeah, there's one key difference between the two, and we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, it's more a diet based around quality ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not so much, there's not a strong focus on the quantity, obviously. If you're not looking to lose weight, I always tell people to eat until they are full. And also, when you have a healthy diet, a lot of the quality type stuff tends to be quite controlled anyway. Just because of the type of food you're eating.
It's highly satiating.
You can't eat as much of it.
Another aspect of a healthy diet, which may not lend itself as much to a fat loss diet, is mental health and satisfaction. So, enjoying some chocolate occasionally, or, a little bit of alcohol on the weekends if that's what you enjoy. You've got more scope to enjoy your food probably a little bit more in quantities that aren't as restrictive.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, so now the key difference between a healthy diet and a fat loss diet is, of course, the one thing that we need to achieve fat loss, and that is a calorie deficit. So I guess, let's use me as an example. If I need to eat roughly 3,000 calories a day to maintain my weight, to lose weight, I might need to eat around 2,500, 2,400. So the food is still largely the same. The difference is I'm just having to be a little bit more restrictive to hit that number and, initiate some kind of fat loss. So the changes that I make to my nutrition to achieve that, that's the difference between a healthy diet and a fat loss diet. So let's say every day at roughly 3 p.m. I have some corn chips and cheese. That can be part of a healthy diet, but it might be something that I look to cut if I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah, absolutely. So quantity comes into it, and quantity is basically it, really, because that's how you get your deficit. Where we look to do that would be completely dependent on the person we are coaching.
Yes. So there's no real roadmap, I guess, to achieving a fat loss diet that suits everyone, because everyone is so different, and the foods they enjoy, the foods they'd be happy to leave out, the foods that have to stay in, it varies from person to person. So if you're listening to this expecting they're going to tell me exactly what to do, unfortunately we can't.
No one can.
Yeah, no one, we can give you ideas, and we will break that down as to, I guess, across the board of our nutrition clients. some trends.
Yeah, some generalizations.
Yeah, but ultimately, for it to be sustainable and effective to you, like it needs to reach the balance of I'm full, but I'm also not completely, depressed and deprived at like the stuff that I've had to cut.
Yeah, that I really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. So, moving on to the next phase of this conversation, and that is going to be roughly around understanding the context of choices in regards to your goal. So, we do a food diary with a lot of our nutrition clients, and in our catch-up appointments with them, we often break it down and just give them a little bit of an idea of what we're looking for and kind of outline areas that we could tidy up or cut or add more. But a lot of the decisions that we make, like we're really clear with them the context that we're making it. So, the context might be, as I'm cooking dinner, I have some crackers with hummus, and like, okay, in regards to a healthy diet, that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to trying to just tighten up around the edges, that can be something that we look to cut. So we make sure that clients know that like it's not an issue normally, but it could be getting in the way of results, which I'm sure everyone listening to this has tried to either lose weight or eat healthily in the past, and when you don't get the results, like it can be fairly demoralizing, like especially if you're putting in an effort, and trying hard to achieve those.
I was about to say, a lot of the people we have dealt with and speak with, like generally doing what we do, like the effort is there.
Yeah,
it's
and
just
it's
a
not
little
their
bit,
first rodeo.
and it's just a little bit misguided. It's not that people aren't trying; it's just they don't know where to put the effort.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another common trend we've seen across clients, which doesn't necessarily relate to this episode, but it's something that I guess someone listening might be able to self-diagnose a little bit, is being a little bit overly restrictive during the day and then overeating at nighttime. So like trying to be really good, but almost essentially being too good to the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And then playing a little bit of catch up at night with excessive snacking.
Yeah.
Moving on a little bit. So what are some changes that you've made with some clients who are looking to lose a little bit of weight? Like what sort of pointers have you given them, or where in their food diary have you looked to make the adjustments?
Yeah, so first I'd start with what they really enjoy. Like what is an absolute no-go for them? What do they absolutely love and cannot live without? I think is really important. And obviously we need, sometimes that is the area that needs to be worked on, but how we work on that area is really important. So for example, alcohol is huge in a lot of people's lives, and that's okay in moderation. But if you are looking to lose a little bit of weight, that can hold you back. So looking to reduce that, but not eliminate. So I think elimination is big in so many diets.
We are in the elimination era.
We are.
Like keto and
like cut it and
vegan. And,
yeah. And so many people that do come to us have already tried so much before, and a lot of it is elimination, and they're like, I know what to do, I can do it. And I'm like,
a lot of it is like around carbohydrates as well.
Yeah.
Would be the main one.
I know what to do, I can do it if I just do this. And I'm like, but why do you want to do that? Like the reason you're here being coached is because you don't want to do that, because you want it to be sustainable. And I really think making anything sustainable in life, this isn't just nutrition, really comes down to you enjoying what you're doing. So for example, like work, you need to enjoy what you do, or you're not going to last in that industry for very long. Nutrition, you need to enjoy what you're eating. If you hate what you're eating, then you're not going to, it is not a sustainable diet.
I think one of the perceived knocks on a sustainable approach, I guess, is it takes some added time to be educated and educate yourself on what that actually looks like. Whereas on face value, it's like, oh, cool, I just won't eat potatoes anymore.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's easy. I don't need to learn why. I just need to do it. Whereas when we're looking at a sustainable approach, all of a sudden now, you have to sort of take the time to learn about macronutrients and the effects they can have and the times at which you need to eat them and better quality meats and this and that. And it can be quite overwhelming. And it's like, oh, I don't know where to start. Whereas, it's so much easier for people who are already really busy, which is all of our clients, to just go, I just won't eat bread. How easy is that?
Yeah.
Without knowing like the why and the how.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Until they introduce it again, and then it's like, well, how do I eat bread and not gain it all back?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not actually the bread; it's the added energy content of the breads. So it's about learning to kind of push and pull a little bit to achieve that, like that zone where you're getting the results you want, but also not completely cutting out a food group or a macronutrient or just overhauling your entire diet.
Yeah, so I think a big part of us is getting to know our clients. Like you were asking, what would I change? Well, I wouldn't change anything until I'm understanding what it is, A, they want, and B, is a non-negotiable for them. Because there's no point me saying don't eat cheese if they love cheese.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maybe I'd look at reducing their cheese intake.
Yeah.
Same as alcohol, whatever it may be. But we really need to understand them and what they want to get out of it.
Just on the cheese one, that's interesting. I think that like people have a fair idea of what needs to be adjusted, but what I think they overestimate is the intensity at which it needs to be adjusted. So rather than having cheese in a meal once a day, if they're previously eating it every day, multiple times a day, they're like, no, I just need to cut it out. It's like, well, like let's make a 20% change rather than an 80% change, and then make a couple more tweaks elsewhere, and all of a sudden it's adding up to the same result. Is that I think the mindset can be is that we look to be a little bit too aggressive with things like that to achieve the energy deficit that we're after.
100%. People want to go all in like that.
Yeah.
They just want to do everything. It's like, well, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it sustainable.
Yeah, and it's often through talking it out and like maybe getting a bit of a gauge of their nutrition history. It's like, in fact, rather than going all in, which is what we've done previously, to varying results but ultimately no long-term consistency, is just taking a little bit of a slightly slower approach, and then achieving it not for 6 weeks but 6 months, and then 6 years, and then all of a sudden it's part of what we do for the rest of our life.
Yeah, and it isn't always such a decision like that you need to think about. Like becomes your norm.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess bringing it back to eating healthy versus eating for fat loss, like let's use the cheese example again. It's like, if I can educate my client to the point where they know that, like this next 6 weeks I'm going to try and, lose a couple of kgs as we head into the holidays. I'm going to pull back my cheese to, one time a day, because I know that, there's a little bit of a calorie deficit there, and I'm going to up my activity a little bit. But I also know that I can be quite healthy and eat healthily and maintain my weight if I do have that cheese 3 times a day. That is a decision that I'm making right now to achieve a certain goal, so that there's no fear of bringing cheese in a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's just understanding the trajectory that will set your path on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so a couple of changes that I guess I've noticed with a few of my clients is food diaries, and I kind of coined it trimming the fat. Is there's a lot of gains to be made, and we can create a really easy to stick to calorie deficit if we're a little bit stricter without eating around the meal times. So often when people get into the kitchen particularly at tea time. It's, grab out the crackers and the dip while I cook, or it's afterwards, it's a little bit extra in the cleanup, or I'm grabbing, like a couple of extra bit of potato out of the pan as I'm, uh, like putting it in the fridge. So
this sounds like little things Ben does in our kitchen, guys.
This is exactly what I do. So, and like, I'm not a unicorn here. Like, it's pretty common, I think, is,
absolutely.
like...
Alcohol, like a lot of people like to have a glass of wine when they cook.
Yeah, but
Very
it's,
common.
Crack open the chips, or, the kids are getting hungry and you pull out the crackers to feed them, and all of a sudden I'm, knuckles deep in hummus and corn chips. But that, like that right there, it's just small stuff like that that adds up. So it's not necessarily the meals that I'm trying to change. It's just trimming up the edges a little bit. And like if I don't have a fat loss goal, or if I've upped my training and I'm, chasing more of a muscle gain or a performance goal, eating some corn chips and hummus pre-meal, that is still part of a healthy diet. It's just understanding the context of the decision that I'm trying to make, and then like just controlling the outcome. And that is all it is. And that's some of the stuff that we've had to point out to clients, is that this isn't necessarily bad. It's just that with your goal right now, it's not helping, and it would be helpful to just restrict it.
Yeah, that is something worth mentioning. Like the mentality and the mindset around good and bad is huge. It's so big. And like, I have constantly been talking to people about, healthier options. That's a less healthy option, or that is a healthier option. It's not like, don't throw it in the bucket of good or bad.
Yeah, we also had a lot of feedback about an Instagram post we did, and I'm just scrolling through and bringing it up now. It's don't think healthy or unhealthy when it comes to food. Think more healthy and less healthy. And it's taking that black and white, like, is this good, is this bad, thinking away into is this better or is this not as good? And it's so much easier to mentally deal with, I guess, a lesser decision of like, that wasn't as good. Next time I'll just try and be a little bit tighter, and then all of a sudden we've come back to that like medium. Yeah. Rather than, that was bad, and then feeling like a failure.
Yeah, exactly. So I use that a lot, coaching a lot of my clients. Like, just make that decision just a little bit healthier. Like, let's just move up the continuum. We don't want to take a massive jump and aim for perfection and be crippled by that.
Yeah, I think a lot of, this is probably a chat for another day, but we know so many clients who are really, really good, probably too good. They set the bar a little bit too high initially, and then all of a sudden, and I guess this is a podcast, so you can't see us, but it's like, raise your hand if you've ever had like a cookie and then just be like, stuff it, day's over. Like, I've broken the momentum, and it's like, well, and this is where education becomes such a large part of it. Is okay, yes, a cookie doesn't have terrific nutritional value. We know that. But let's say it's 250 calories and it's predominantly carbs. It's not a disaster.
No.
That's
Move
cool.
on.
Yeah.
Next meal.
That was my morning snack. Maybe I will, just have protein and some fruit in the arvos rather than what else I was going to have. And all of a sudden, you're back to zero. It's fine. It's just... But if you don't know that, like, if we're too hung up on healthy versus unhealthy, and I'm trying to eat healthier, like, that can be, that can be the end. And then we're back to, it's too hard and I've failed again. And all of a sudden, like, every time we go through that cycle, it gets harder and harder to start again.
Yeah. And that's where, like, yo-yo dieting comes in.
Yeah. Restrict, like binge, restrict, binge.
Yeah, that extreme, the extreme, like aiming for perfection, then going back to really bad behaviors. Is like, we just want to instill good behaviors that are going to get us that outcome.
We've all been there as well. Like, it is such a hard pattern to break, and being mentally okay with, like, what was it? Yesterday, I had some M&Ms in the afternoon. I would never previously have ever done that on a week. Like, I had like this weird thing in my head where it was like, nah, it's a weekday. like no way, M&M's on a Friday, like you've got to be kidding. But weirdly, if I had M&M's on a Friday night, oh cool,
Be okay with that.
no big deal. And it's like, that's a bit odd, isn't it? And like that's where that's where I'm at with my own like journey. And maybe I'm on chapter 22 and you're on chapter 8, but like it's stuff like that which is still weird that you think that it'll have such a negative impact. And it's like,
and it's not at all.
And it's like, well, actually, like using nutritional sciencey sort of thought here, like, wouldn't it be better to have my higher calorie, higher carb food earlier in the day when I'm still a chance to be nice and active and you like potentially use that rather than just go to bed?
Yeah.
But, like there's so many, like mentally ingrained beliefs that we have that it's like, like carbs after 9 p.m. can't do that. It's like, why?
The education process has just
massive.
Been so rewarding, like for me personally.
It's so good because clients are just like, when we ask them like, does that make sense and does that make that easier to understand? They're like, 100%. Is all of a sudden you can start to justify decisions you're making without the fear of going backwards or ruining it, or here I am a failure again. Like there's so much power in knowledge.
Yeah.
100%. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. So we can get back to eating healthier versus eating for fat loss. And the one last point that I sort of wanted to expand on today that I don't think gets enough airtime or conversation in regards to regular Joes like us is that you shouldn't be eating a fat loss diet for longer than 3 months. I mean, and that's a generalization because some people have more weight to lose, some people have less weight to lose. But if fat loss is your goal, it's not something that you want to be doing for years.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a constant calorie deficit.
Or thinking that you are.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the saying where it's, where like your perspective is reality? I've had a mental blank. Anyway, moving on. I can't talk. But like, if you think
can't
that you're,
help you.
but like the mental stress of trying really hard without achieving the results. So thinking that you're eating well and that you're in a calorie deficit when you actually aren't.
Yeah.
You're gonna burn out without actually achieving the results.
Yeah, devastating.
And then like that's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's basically like banging your head against a brick wall.
Actually, that's another thing worth mentioning. I think everybody has that that end outcome, so that end goal is so like front of mind. Whereas we get that goal initially, we discuss that goal, and then we put it to the side. And what is it we focus on? We focus on the behaviors,
the process.
Yeah,
process goals.
Absolutely. So like working on those behaviors is what gets you that outcome. Without that outcome, like consuming you.
Yeah, like waking up every day, looking in the mirror and being like, why don't I have a six-pack yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than waking up every day and just being like, all right, I've planned my walk to get my 10,000 steps. I've got my lunch prepped from last night. Yep. Perfect. That's all I needed to work on this week. That's easy. And I continue on my day. Tick, tick.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
how rewarding is that? Like, as a person going...
Yeah.
Like ticking that off.
Momentum.
Oh my goodness, progress. Love it.
We can, I guess we can probably expand on how to set good nutrition goals in particular, maybe in a later episode, but I've lost my train of thought because you interrupted.
Oh, sorry.
But I'm pretty sure we've basically covered everything, and I guess the 3 key points to take home is understanding the context of your decisions and the results you can expect from that, knowing that it's not forever and it's a targeted approach.
Yeah.
And the last one would be, if you need help, please reach out.
That is a good one. Just remembering like elimination is not the answer, I think is a big one for a lot of people. And
education is the answer.
Yeah, it's education. Yeah. Absolutely. So really make sure that, you don't have that all or nothing mindset if you do want a sustainable approach.
Absolutely. Anyways, it is good to be back. We will have some episodes coming for you over the coming weeks as we open up our lockdown and begin PT again, which will be nice to see some smiling faces not on Zoom.
Definitely.
Yeah, but we will speak to you guys again next week.
Bye,
Enjoy.
guys.